Hello, welcome in. Today we're going to be discussing the prediction for the upcoming boxing match between Ben Askren and Jake Paul. Now, wait, I'm going to rewind that there. I'm actually just having a look at the latest footage of Jake Paul, and I seen a really good punch there. Uh, so I'll play it back here. This is Jake Paul's latest training footage, and he does look in really good shape. He looks physically strong. If you look at footage from his earlier training camps for his previous two professional fights that he's done, he has come a long way in a short time. So let's have a wee look at this good punch here. He's sharp, he's fast, compact. These are good punches. That's a really good punch. Quite powerful. Now, I've seen several of the Ben Askren interviews and Jake Paul. I've seen their sparring and their training footage. I've seen their podcasts and so on. I'm not sure if I can actually use this video, so I've turned the volume down because I don't want YouTube giving my channel a copyright strike. So we're going to go into the debate about who I think is going to win. Uh, it's about where to start. Jake Paul is moving in to become what he claims a professional fighter. He genuinely believes he is a professional fighter, even though he's only had two matches. His opponents is the problem why most of the actual boxing community won't actually accept this guy as being a professional boxer. It's quite insulting that he's commanding such high paydays and pay-per-view events, being a YouTuber uh, who has had a rise to stardom, especially within the boxing and social media. Now that's where I think many of his fans get mistaken, is that Jake Paul is actually a showman. As you can see here with the ropes, if you know Jake Paul's actual life story, uh, before he was going to become a boxer, he tried to be a professional jump rope skipper. He was really good at jumping the ropes and stuff, and he does look good in the ring, especially against men who are not professional boxers, uh, like Nate Robinson, who was a basketball player. And if anybody knows boxing, you'll know that Nate Robinson, it's the first time Jake Paul hit him, you could see that Nate Robinson had never been in a fight in his life. He's like, whoa, like, fucking hell, what just hit me there? Of course, Jake does have a good punch. Can't you take that away from him? He really does have a nice punch. It's sharp, it's crisp, it's compact, and he's got good power on it. His movement is quite good. It's definitely snappy, and his footwork's good. Uh, so getting into like the boxing fundamentals, who's got the better? Jake Paul definitely has the better boxing fundamentals, but who is the better competitor? And that's clearly Ben Askren. Ben Askren has got years and years of experience at a very, very high level of competing. And it's not always the fighter that wins. When you've got two people, when you've got a boxer or an MMA star, uh, the one who's the better competitor, 9 times out of 10 they will win. Now, obviously, Jake Paul's much younger than Ben Askren. Ben Askren's an older man. Just like he's obviously at retirement age. He was retired. I think he's 36 years old, and he was just coming off a hip surgery. Okay. Now there's loads of footage of Ben Askren actually showing his hip surgery uh, scar from what he had just a couple of months ago. So he wasn't allowed to really train or anything like that. This is where Jake Paul tries to gather clout, because after like knocking out Nate Robinson, he did call out several fighters, and he called out Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, some other Irish boy, forget his name, young boxer who trains with Conor. He called out Canelo Alvarez, of all people, like really disrespectful to like the pound for pound champion. And then he called out Dylan Dennis and Ben Askren. Obviously, he never had any intentions to actually fight uh, Nate Diaz, Canelo, or Conor McGregor, and he really wanted the Dylan Dennis fight. Now, Dylan Dennis, if anybody really knows who he is and sees him fighting, he's not a good striker at all. He's a worse version of Ben Askren, and he's only had a couple of fights. And he's essentially also a YouTube star because he garners all the attention because he's a lackey of Conor McGregor. Uh, and that's who Jake wanted. I mean, Ben Askren brought that up within their interview, and Jake acted like an absolute child. He tried to dismiss it. There's umpteen breakdowns upon the body language between both men, and it's clear that Jake is very, very insecure. Ben hit him with umpteen comments which really did get under Jake's skin and make him extremely insecure, especially about his brother. Now, to the fight, it's actually a win-win situation for any fan. Ultimately, it's a win-win situation. Why do I say that? I mean, if Jake does actually win, and he's got the ability to win. He's definitely got the power. He's got the speed. He's got the youth. He's got the height. He's definitely got the power, and he's got some really good boxing fundamentals, good footwork, and he's obviously getting trained at a very high level between these trainers and these camps. Now, if Jake wins, it's a win-win situation for fans, essentially because Jake will end up getting someone who's actually a high-level striker, someone like your Nate Diaz or your Conor McGregor or your Canelo, someone who can seriously hurt him. Be under no illusions that Ben Askren's an elite high-level striker. We all know that he's not a good striker, and Ben is extremely transparent about his actual boxing ability, which makes him so likeable. If any of you have went on and watched Logan Paul podcast Impulsive, they actually interviewed Ben Askren, and I even think Logan Paul and the rest of the hosts on the show actually admire and respect Ben Askren because he's just chill, he's down to earth, he's under no illusions and no delusions about his ability and what he's capable of. Some people speculate that Ben Askren's taken Jake Paul too lightly. I don't think Ben Askren actually really cares if he wins or loses. He's getting one of the highest paydays of his life. He's had one of the fastest, I think it is the fastest knockout loss in UFC history to George Masvidal. And this is where people get confused because they think that Ben Askren's some kind of like Glassjaw Joe, which is by far from the truth. He was a one champion. He was Bellator for years. He was a champion. He's been in the UFC against killers, absolute killers, who can punch wearing 4-ounce gloves. And his knockout loss to Masvidal was via a flying knee to the neck, to the back of the ear, to the neck. He's never been knocked out with like an uppercut or a punch. I say uppercut because I do believe that if Jake Paul does knock him out, it'll be via an uppercut. Because I can see Ben Askren putting his hands up and working in close and coming at him unorthodoxly, coming in close, leaning on him, tying him up. Maybe it's not going to be pretty boxing. It's going to be like Rocky Marciano. It's going to be rough. It's going to be rugged, and it's just going to be constant. And perhaps Jake can catch him in the early rounds, in the first 2 rounds, Now, that's Jake's best opportunity because Ben Askren's notoriously slow starter, whereas Jake's notoriously fast starter. Uh, but Jake's never been pushed at a high level, especially over endurance and distance. And I think if Jake does not get Ben out within the first 2 rounds, then ultimately, round about the fourth round, that's when Jake's going to experience resistance and he's going to understand that he's in a fight and he won't be able to keep up the momentum, the endurance, the stamina, the mentality. He's already clearly got a weak mentality, and Ben will start to take him into deep waters. And I think maybe around the 6th or 7th round, Ben will drown him. He'll drown him with experience. Ben knows that he's not going to go out there and do slick boxing skills and knock out Jake with his powerful punches. Ben knows he's no strong puncher or he's not a slick boxer. Ben knows that like you win over the grind, and that's basically what he's going to do to Jake. He's going to grind him. Now, regardless who actually wins this fight, is going to be very very interesting. Uh, Especially if Jake wins it. Especially if Jake wins it. I like Ben, and it's hard not to like him. You know, he's a funny guy. He's very very transparent, very honest, and he seems very very friendly. And you just can't fuck with him. You know, you just can't fuck with him because he puts he wears his heart on his sleeve, and it's evident if you watch things like Logan Paul's Impulsive. Uh, Ben's just a very very chill, down to earth guy, whereas Jake is an absolute brat. He is a brat. A lot of it's for show. I mean, he does do a lot of like loud, brash talking, similar to your Floyd Mayweather's and your Conor McGregor's, which sells fights. He's a showman for sure, and he will sell fights. But a lot of that's not just an act for to sell tickets. This is the guy's personality. He's a brat. I mean, there's thousands of videos of him. He's been uploading videos since he was a kid onto YouTube, onto social media, and he's gathered a following of fans who hate him, but they still watch him, you know. And a lot of it's went to his head. He feels untouchable. Uh, he's surrounded with too many yes men. Uh, Even his brother has stated quite frequently that they've had like beef with each other, where they're discussing who's the better boxer, or whose channel gets more views, or who's got the bigger following, or how much money they earn. He's clearly got brother issues, and it's a lot of jealousy between Jake towards his own brother. Uh, so if Jake did win, I could see him actually trying to fight his own brother. I mean, it didn't happen with the Klitschko brothers. It didn't happen with the Charlo brothers. But Jake's the kind of guy who would sell out his own love for his brother for money and social media attention. He's a fucked up individual. He's a wrong one, basically. He's a wrong one. And hopefully Ben wins, but ultimately, even if Jake does win, we're going to get to see him fight his own brother or fight an absolute killer, someone who is a striker, you know. And he's a coward, you know, he's a coward. These people who he's been boxing, they're not boxers, you know. He called out a guy who's a wrestler, two guys who are essentially wrestlers, who are not strikers. Uh, One of them's retired, 36 years old, just coming off a hip replacement surgery. This isn't what a young lion does. This isn't what like a young Ryan Garcia or a Teofimo Lopez or a young Canelo do. These guys fight absolute killers who are elite strikers, and they go up against the best. You know, like Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell. Luke Campbell's a fucking killer. Uh, and he's no looking for, sorry, I'm going to put this back on. He's not looking for easy paydays, and that's what Jake's doing. He's essentially just looking for an easy payday to get some clout and recognition behind his name with fighting someone who is an old man, is retired, is coming off hip replacement surgery, is not a boxer, is not a striker, and has suffered the fastest knockout loss in UFC history. You know, this is not what a lion does. You're not king of the jungle for beating a fucking one-legged monkey, you know. A lion fights another lion. Jake thinks he's a lion, and he's calling out absolute killers like Nate Diaz or Conor McGregor and so on. Canelo, he wouldn't last 20 seconds against these guys. He really wouldn't last 20 seconds against these guys. And if he does manage to beat someone like Ben Askren, which I do think he does have a small chance, uh, then he will face someone who is a killer, and we will see him get knocked out. Hopefully, he accepts Dana White's offer and he gets to fight Amanda Nunes, because there'd be nothing more satisfying than to actually watch Jake Paul get knocked out by a girl, especially with all the social media claims from girls who have posted video and picture evidence that they've been at his house and claimed sexual assault, all the lawsuits that he's been embroiled in with young girls, and it would be really satisfying to see this guy lose to a woman like Amanda Nunes, who is also an elite striker, and she would hurt him, you know. If that young guy, what was his name? I forget his name. I mean, Jake Paul fought. He fought two guys professionally. One of them was Nate Robinson, and there was one Ali Eson Gibb. But he did have an amateur fight. I think it was against Deji. That's KSI's little brother. I mean, Deji's a lot smaller than Jake Paul, and he smashed his nose. Like, he smashed Jake Paul's nose within the first round. You know, and if you watch like Jake Paul's actual videos, his blogs and so on, where he's been messing about with Logan, Jake Paul's a bleeder. This is another thing what people aren't taking into account. He cannot take a punch. Even his brother has stated that Jake Paul and his training and his sparring partners frequently light up Jake Paul, and it's been exposed that some of these guys are actually paid to go light on Jake Paul and no push him and no take him into deep water. You know, like there are too many yes men behind him that he's starting to believe his own hype. And a fight's only a real fight when there's resistance. And these guys only giving him resistance. A basketball player who was famous for a slam dunk contest, a fellow YouTuber called Ali Essen Gibb, and Deji, who's also a YouTuber who's famous for basically being the brother of KSI, who played FIFA online. You know, these aren't combat athletes, you know. And you might think that he's like a professional boxer now, or he's a fighter, but when you go up against a real fighter, then the resistance shows. He won't be able to deal with it. First two rounds, he will look fantastic, but when it gets to about the fourth round and he realises that it's a fight, then his lack of experience, his lackey getting hard sparring sessions, where his actual trainers are pushing him, then trying to like hurt him, too many yes men around him, Jake Paul is going to fall. My final prediction will be Ben Askren, round 6, knockout, or perhaps it will go to a Ben Askren decision. However, these things, especially boxing, MMA crossover, there's too much money involved. There'd be too much money involved. Jake Paul does have wrestling experience. Both the Pauls have wrestling experience, and if it is a draw, then ultimately the media, the sports, they know that they can make a big massive cash in by saying, okay, let's roll this back and do it in the octagon, where Ben Askren's got a chance and Jake Paul's got some wrestling experience. So there could be a very controversial draw if it goes to the cards. Otherwise, Ben needs to knock him out within the 6th or 7th round. Thank you for taking your time to watch the channel. If you enjoy the channel, please give it a thumbs up and a subscribe. Normally I don't do boxing predictions, but if there's an interesting fight coming up, sure, why not? 'Cause we'll have a good fight. Thank you.